Your Creative Push, episode 92.
You don't have to be the best, you just have to be unique. Every hour you're not honing your craft is a step further away from your passions.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is RM Kavanagh. RM is a painter from Ireland who is fascinated and influenced by the dissolving nature of life and the engagement of the inner mechanics of the human structure. As an artist, I delve into the areas in life which are uncomfortable to ponder, and I create those ideas on canvas, leading to an everlasting stain on the viewer's mind. And I have to tell you, man, they do. I don't know if it's a stain necessarily, but your pieces do stick with you. So congrats to you for being able to do that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with Comfortably Numb, your painting, which for anybody listening, you have to just immediately go check out. We'll have it at the top of the show notes page at yourcreativepush.com/RM. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What inspired that?
At the time in Ireland, we had a financial crash, and there were a lot of families who are suffering through the recession in Ireland. And I created two paintings. One painting was called Groundhog Day, and the other painting was Comfortably Numb. For me to explain Comfortably Numb, I have to explain Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day would be a painting of a mother and a child, and they're at the breakfast table, and there's mounting bills, mortgage repayments, electrical bills, and the child is spilling the milk from the breakfast bowl to the floor, and the mother is gazing into oblivion, worrying about if she's going to lose her home. On the flip side of that, where Comfortably Numb came into play, is that in recession times there will always be people who are comfortable and financially okay, and the recessions will never really affect them because they have enough cushion to weather the storm. So Comfortably Numb, I have put two characters side by side, and from a wormhole view, I would describe it. From underneath the table, there is the husband who is standing, and then the wife is kind of sprawled on the table with wine spilled. And the reason behind it is that in recession times, there will be people who will have first world problems, that the guy is financially secure, but he's a workaholic and he loves working, and that's all he thinks about, and he's neglecting the emotions of his wife. So she's hitting the drink because she doesn't work, and she is a lady of leisure. So they have first world problems that he has to deal with her drinking, just kind of stuff like that. Mm. So yeah, it's kind of it's a hard hitting painting with a lot of content.
Absolutely, and just the perspective is so cool coming from below the table. I love it.
I just feel with that sort of perspective, you can get more information into the painting to create the narrative.
Do you find that, because like we said in the intro, it's you try to kind of capture these like gray areas in life that people don't necessarily want to talk about. Why is that really important to you?
I think we sweep a lot that goes on under the carpet to kind of protect ourselves as human beings. I feel that if you hit your fears head on, you become a stronger person. The death of a loved one, people can try to ignore it instead of dealing with and going through the emotional turmoil. And I feel if you deal with it and confront all your fears, you will end up being a stronger person. And I find those areas of life more interesting than the successes and the failures. I find the in-between a little bit, just about the moment before chaos either happens or the moment the aftermath chaos happens, or before the moment of something happy, or just after. I like to capture the moment that people are not focusing on.
Those kinds of things give me the chills. I love thinking about that too. And it's, as you're talking about it, it's like, yeah, the moments of actual chaos or disarray are, you don't really get to make decisions in those moments. It's the before and the after where they're like the pivot points where you can actually, kind of make a decision. Whereas when you're actually going through the turmoil, the chaotic craziness, you're basing it on instinct.
It's exactly. It's like, when people describe just before an accident happens and they say that they can see it in slow motion, but they cannot do anything about it. That's the moment where, I'd like to try to capture.
Yeah.
It's where, exactly as you explained, you can't stop it, but it's happening.
That's so cool. Have you always had that kind of desire to paint and to draw like that kind of a situation, or has that kind of evolved over time?
When I started painting, I wanted, when you're a young painter, and you have so many different styles and genres before you, you are very confused and you don't know what to pick, because I love every type of art that is available, abstract expressionism, surrealism, realism, photorealism, everything that's out there that has come before me. In this generation, you're very confused because there's so much selection and you have to try to forge your own style. And I tried everything from impressionism to pop art. I just tried everything because I needed to experience all these types of art, to see what direction I wanted to go down. And a lot of my work in the early years was kind of very safe. There was certain moments in my life where it completely changed. When my mother passed away, that's when I completely started to see life as, the grey areas of life, because when we were nursing my mother on her deathbed, I was getting texts from friends who were on holiday. So when I was going through this tragic moment, other people were basking in the sunshine. No fault of their own. They didn't know. And they were having fun. So when one person is enjoying and having a fruitful time in their life, there's another person going through, tragedy and turmoil. And that's what led me to where I'm going now.
Do you feel like you have kind of found where you're at in your creativity, or do you feel like you're still kind of evolving and you might go a completely different direction?
I feel at the moment I'm in transition, and I have struggled for a number of years with my technical ability, and I'm trying to rectify that because I had a lot of good ideas and I didn't want to waste them on bad technical practice. So now I'm rectifying it. I'm slowly getting there, but I'm getting closer, but to a certain plateau where I feel it's a strong base to build on. But my problem is that I can't stay focused long enough to stay on one theme. But now I'm mature enough that I feel that I'm reaching that point where I'll stick to a theme for an exhibition instead of having multiple ideas in a show. So slowly, I'm slowly getting there, but not quite there.
Yeah, that really strikes a chord with me. The idea of not wanting to waste really good ideas with bad technical, with your, the point that you're at right now. I've certainly had that with writing ideas, where I'm just like, this is an idea that it just doesn't feel right. So how do you find the point where it's the correct time to go forward with maybe an idea that you've had in your head for a really long time?
That's how I've worked in the past, where I'd live with an idea for like at least a year or so, and if that idea stays within my mind, I know it's a strong idea to pursue. And if it fades away and I forget about it, well, then it wasn't strong enough or good enough to follow and pursue. So I just felt that I needed to go back to the old traditional styles of the old masters and try to figure out their techniques. So you kind of have to bring yourself back to tradition, and somewhere like in your case, maybe go back to, I don't know, to writers of, I don't know, Shakespeare maybe, or someone, just to see how they constructed a plot. But you may not take everything from your past masters, but you will take elements of what they know and try to incorporate it into your new work, if that makes sense. So you kind of have to kind of strip back everything to the bare bone and try to build it back up again. And that's what I've tried to do, technically.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Strip it down and build it up stronger.
Yeah, strong foundation, because I find when I'm an untrained artist, so I never, I applied to colleges, but I never got the chance because I got rejected to go to college. So I find that as a young artist, you could walk into an art shop and you'll see all these materials, and you think, I'll try every single material that's on that shelf, but you don't know what order they go in. So you will fumble around for many years trying to figure out in what order they go in. So I think you're better off going back to your foundations, when art was at its best and its highest quality would be, the classical painters. Try to learn from, you'll never take all the techniques of some of or the majority of them. The old masters are gone. And we're still trying to figure out, how Rembrandt painted the way he did. We have an idea, but we'll never know the full technical aspects of his work. But yeah, just go back to basics.
Absolutely. Go back to basics and maybe also explore other avenues. Kind of like you were talking about before, how you've tried everything. You've tried all different mediums and styles. For somebody listening now, how would you help them pick? Well, what advice would you give them to pick one thing, or would you just say kind of do everything? Do you have to pick?
No, I don't think you have to pick. Some artists might just fall into a style, or, start painting or creating or conceptual art, or they might just fall into it and be happy there, and be content and then continue on. But if I wanted to be a visual painter, or, like an oil painter, I'd go back to basics. I'd go back and study in the Angel Academy, or in Florence, and they will teach you how to draw. They will teach you how to paint. They'll teach you the basics, and then when you leave that college, it's up to you to go in your own direction. Now, I know one or two people who have gone to the Florence Academy, and they are exceptional artists. They have the ability to draw and paint lifelike and amazing quality work. But once you have the basics, you can diversify then into any area that you go in, as long as you keep in mind and not to let the restraints of a college bound you, and keep your mind open. Like if you go to a Florence Academy, study the basics, but then when you're at home, experiment with different materials, or, try to paint something, that's on your mind, or, something different from the restraints of the school.
Yeah. That's where you can kind of go, change from the brain to the heart, and really kind of go with what you've been thinking about for a while and explore, as you said.
Yeah, exactly. Just, follow your instincts, of what you want your work to look like. But having the foundation of an academy like that will stand to you.
Absolutely. Could you take us back to your first, or maybe one of your first creative moments, and tell us that story?
I kind of fell into art. I was grounded when I was 13 for 3 months of the summer holidays. This is when I went into secondary school.
What'd you do?
And I was dabbling in narcotics.
Okay.
And it was a serious offense, and I got caught.
Gotcha.
And I was grounded for 3 months, and I had an art pack from school, so I just picked them up, and ever since I haven't stopped. I kind of fell into a love of drawing and pastels, and just continued. And then I seen a documentary on Salvador Dali, and that was it. I was hooked, and then I knew exactly what I wanted to be I knew what direction to follow.
So you said that was it. You knew right from then, but were there any things that held you back then, and do they still maybe hold you back?
There will always be something that will hold you back. You know, I would have loved to have gone to college and studied just so I didn't, because I wasted so much time trying to figure out techniques that if I had have gone to college or an academy, I would have learned them in maybe 3 years, maybe. And I felt that, that held me back for a number of years technically. But I always find that when an obstacle is put in front of me, it makes me, try harder to overcome, and not, I wouldn't be very submissive. I kind of go the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
That when people reject me or put obstacles in my way, if somebody locks the door of the house and won't let you in, well, I'll break the window and get in the back, so to speak. So there's so many different ways you can skin a cat,
Absolutely. Now, what would you suggest to somebody, because I'm sure a lot of people listening are in the situation that you've described, where they didn't go to school for art, but they find themselves just really wanting to get in the back door, as you said, and find a way to obtain the skills like you have. What would you suggest to them?
Make as many contacts within the industry as possible. Go to drawing classes, go to art exhibitions, get into the industry, because if you're on the outskirts, you will remain on the outskirts. So go to all the events that pop up in your area, and then start setting up your own shows. I started putting my work in coffee shops when I was 19. I set up my first solo show at 19. When you have enough of a portfolio, approach galleries, and slowly you will get rejected. Everybody gets rejected, and that's something you have to become familiar with. Just embrace it, because it never ends throughout your career. You will submit your work to all different institutions, and you will be rejected. And you have to be able to take that on the chin and continue, because your work may be brilliant, but it just might not fit that show or fit that gallery. It's like you can't expect to get on with everybody in life, because sometimes personalities clash, but that's okay. But you just have to get out there and show your work. If you're sitting at home in your bedroom, it's not Hollywood. No gallery is going to hear about you and pull up and offer you a contract. They have a number of artists knocking on their door all day long. You have to just be very, very visual on social media and in your local community, and make contacts, because no man is an island, and everybody needs, a helping hand.
Yeah, dive in. It's like the perfect advice is just go in kind of full throttle, and you're right, they're not going to find you. And you have to look at no's as collecting. You collect all the no's that you can, and you should be happy to be getting the no's, because that means you're one step closer to the yes.
I think as human beings, we can protect ourselves in that sense as well. Like you can collect your no's, and you see it as you can also say, if you submit work to exhibitions and institutions, and if they keep saying no, well then, you have to look at the Impressionists. A lot of the new work, of Manet was rejected from the Salon in Paris. So if you're being rejected, you're probably doing the right thing, because maybe it's work that they can't recognize. So could be the future. So you can look at it at so many different ways, and, collect your rejections, and store them, and it'll make you work harder.
Yeah. And just keep pushing until you get the yeses. And even after the yeses come, you'll still get no's after. So
Oh,
don't
exactly.
get too cocky.
It never ends. It never ends, and it's just part of the industry.
Now you have an exhibition coming up in 2017. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm currently working on at the moment.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Um, for the first time, in my career, it's been 20 years, probably this year. I'm going to work on a theme, and that theme is going to be a series of paintings from underneath the table, like Comfortably Numb.
Oh, yes.
So I am creating 6 or 7 scenes and narratives from underneath the table. So they will be 3 foot by 3 foot, with additional small accompanying paintings of close-ups of different areas of each painting. So I'm on the second painting at the moment, and it seems to be all shaping up okay. So I've still a lot of work ahead of me.
Very cool, man. I am very excited about that because that is become one of my favorite paintings of all time. And again, if you're listening, you haven't checked it out, you definitely have to check it out.
Well, if you're in Dublin at the time, or if you want to fly over, you're more than welcome.
Cool. Yeah, I have a friend that lives in Dublin, so maybe that will be a perfect time for that.
Yeah, you've plenty of time to make plans.
Cool. Can I ask, do you have like a formula for balancing your time with, a show coming up and all your other work that you want to do? How do you balance the time on a daily basis?
When I start to work on a show, it would just be 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
I'd wake up, I get the children ready for school, and when they're out the door, I go into the studio 9 o'clock. And then I won't stop working till about 6 o'clock, and then come in for dinner, help my wife with the children, and then go back out to work, get the children to bed, back out to work for 9 o'clock until about 12 or 1 o'clock. And that would be my daily routine for exhibition time. And that's it. I won't go anywhere or do anything. No holidays, nothing until this exhibition is completed. So it's like training camp, or if you're coming up to a fight or a boxing, it's just training, and it's just rigorous discipline.
I love that idea of doing it like you're training for a fight, because that's really what it is. If you think about it, it's training. It's working the hardest that you can to become the best that you can.
Yeah, it's like you're challenged mentally and physically, emotionally, throughout the course of the exhibition, because they take a lot of out of you, when you're working on shows like this, because you're putting everything into your shows, and they really, really drain you. So you have to be, I would basically focus 100% and no distractions.
Do you find that you have, because that's something that I am struggling with the podcast and having a full-time job, how do you balance with your wife and your kids? Do you ever find that it's stressful in that respect?
Oh, absolutely. It's like you've got 3 little people, dragging you in different directions. But when it comes to the weekend, like I'd work on exhibitions only, I'd work on Saturdays till about 1 o'clock, but then I stop everything and I bring the children out. We go and, climb a mountain, play football, just do the little pleasures that the children want to do, playground, and that's it. My attention is fully on them. And then the same with Sunday, they get all my attention. So I work like crazy during the week and at night time, but then the weekends, it's their time.
So it's like just making sure that you allot time and push time aside for that. And have it
absolutely.
On the calendar. Yeah.
They'll end up on drugs or the drink in years to come. They'll say to me, "Dad, you were never around. Always in the studio. You don't love us." And that'll give them an excuse to take to the drink. So I'm not going to give them any excuses.
Oh, good for you, man.
That's it's a joke,
Yeah, but I hear you.
Just in case people think, I'm abandoning my children.
No, I don't think anybody thinks that. But good for you. So before we get to the final push, Do you have a favorite book or YouTube clip or anything else that you kind of draw inspiration from when you need it? And that maybe we could as well.
There's a photographer, when I started kind of, really delving into the, narrative of painting, there's a photographer who I love called Gregory Croydon, and he has a book called Twilight.
Sure, yeah.
And, the way he uses nearly a film production team to create his imagery.
Yeah.
Is absolutely, and he always leaves you with that grey moment of what just happened. And he just blows your mind with his photography. And I just think he really kind of hits the nail on the head, and he knows, how to leave you suspended, and uncomfortable. He leaves you uncomfortable when you look at his imagery. You're kind of trying to figure out what just happened.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a perfect example of what we were talking about before. And there's so much going on in them, and it's such a cool style that you just, upon looking into it, you just get sucked into it and you feel like you're actually there. And, and like exactly. You said, like in a freeze frame, like they have in movies and stuff where you can pause time and almost like you can walk through it and like you said, try to figure out what's going on. Yeah. He's awesome.
He's the best. I think, one of the best. It's a real pleasure to just flick through his book, and it spurs you on, to try to reach your highest ability.
Absolutely. It is time for the final push. And this is where I ask you to reach through the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already inspired today that's thinking, maybe I could do this too, or maybe I need to dive in, maybe I need to get back to the basics like we were talking about, and give them your best advice and push them into pursuing their creative passions.
What I would say is, you don't have to be the best. You just have to be unique. And every hour you're not honing your craft is a step further away from your passions. So you need to obsess about what you want, because there's a guy or a girl out there or somebody who wants it more than you. And if you don't obsess about it, well, then they're going to just overtake you. You don't have to be the best. Like, you look at Francis Bacon. He wasn't the best draftsman in the world, but his style was unique and just from a deep place that he wanted to create from. And he made his work just world famous, and he is a renowned, famous painter. So it just shows you, like, you don't have to be the best draftsman. You don't have to be like, look at Kurt Cobain, Nirvana. He wasn't the best guitarist, but he created songs that were, that will stand the test of time and are creatively, touch the souls of everybody. Because people measure themselves against other people. When they go to college, he's a better draftsman, he's a better drawer, he's a better painter than me. But that doesn't mean they're gonna have a better career than you. Your unique style might impact a lot more people than that person. So just be unique.
The thing about Kurt Cobain is he sang from the heart, and he was honest about who he was, and he just put it out there without a filter.
He there's so many different musicians that you could say are just amazing. But for me, Kurt Cobain and Nirvana and the grunge scene, like they struck a chord with a generation, and your work could, strike a chord with, and especially with social media. Once you keep putting it out there, could strike a chord with a gallerist. They could see your work and, think you're absolutely amazing. And you can get an exhibition from it. Like, these things can happen, but you have to keep putting your work out there. It's no good in the bedroom or on your studio wall. It has to be seen by the public.
Absolutely. And they'll never see it unless you sit down and actually do it. And to do it, you need to obsess over it. So
yeah, you have to be. You just have to obsess and just think about it. And even if you, like yourself, you have a full-time job, the time that you have off, put that time into your ideas. Like, even if you can't physically get down and paint, well, spend the time if you're sitting on the bus going to work thinking about, like, I would paint some paintings in my head before I paint them. And then it's easier to paint them because the job's half done because I figured out a lot of the technical problems. And so if you're on the bus going to work, we'll figure all these problems out in your head before you get to work. And then when you go home or the weekend, you have time to create or paint or be a musician, or you won't waste any time. You'll just get straight into it.
It all comes back to, obsessing over it, thinking about it all the time, because if it's an idea that you have, like we talk about on the show, you're kind of stuck with it. So you might as well be stuck with it and be productive about it and obsess over it that way and actually produce something. So I love it.
Yeah.
RM, thank you, man, so much for coming on the show today and for giving us that push, man.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you and just anybody who's listening. Thanks for listening.
And we really appreciate you. So you can check out RM on his website, which is rmkavanagh.ie. That's rmkavanagh.ie. Or you can head to yourcreativepush.com/RM. And also his Instagram is rm_Kavanagh. RM, thanks again, man.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, such a pleasure talking with RM. The humbleness of this guy. How he said that he does not have the technical skills, that he's still working on it. If you've seen his work, you know that it's just crazy, but it also is kind of inspiring to see that somebody with such talent is still wanting to work and get better. And he was also just such an awesome guy. We had a really cool conversation after the interview that lasted for over an hour, which was pretty fun. But one of the really powerful ideas from this episode that I really want you to remember is the idea of not wanting to waste really good ideas on bad technical practice. There's a fine line there, and I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to advise you to approach that. On one hand, I totally get it. You have a wonderful idea that it absolutely deserves to be put out there in the best possible light, and you owe it to that idea to give it the best chance at life. But on the other hand, those ideas can keep building up, and that's one of the main themes that keeps coming up in this podcast is when those ideas keep building and building and getting bigger and bigger, the more you think about them, it can just freeze you into not doing anything at all, which is totally what we want to avoid. So it's kind of tough, but what I've come to realize with my own work is that the particularly big ideas come out naturally when you're ready for them. It all of a sudden feels right, or something else that you're doing suddenly connects with this idea that you've been holding in your back pocket, and it kind of just feels right. And I mean, that's really terrible advice on paper to tell you that you just should wait until it feels right. It's incredibly vague advice, actually, but I think when you experience this, you'll completely understand and agree, and perhaps you already have experienced this. But it all comes back in the end to just, doing the work every day so that when those opportunities come up, you're ready for them, and those opportunities will come up sooner and more often. And when you get these great ideas that you're not ready for, it's like you just keep adding them to your queue at different points in time in the future. And the beauty of it is that you'll get to all of them and you'll keep adding actually more ideas and bigger ideas and better ideas to the end of the queue. But the important thing there is that you do the work every single day, that you actually get to that queue, the things that are before them, the work that you need to put in, the practice, the learning to learn all the skills like RM talked about. It really is like you're preparing for a battle, preparing for like a boxing match, and it's like training, just like he's training for his show. These big ideas that you have that you're not ready for, they're like these like big gorilla monster type things that you know that you're not ready to fight right now. You're not ready to battle them, but it's about putting in the time and putting in the training so that you're ready for them when the time is right, when the opportunity feels right. And that's the beautiful thing about it, is that when it is time to quote fight this big monster of an idea, when you actually go to work on it, it is not like a battle at all. It is like this, like this dance, this beautiful dance. And if you can get into a flow state and you just feel like you are doing your life calling because you've been thinking about this thing for so long, and it's finally the right time, and it just feels right. It's just the most beautiful thing you can do as an artist, as a creative person, is to finally face these big ideas that you've been holding on to and just go for it. It's the thing that you should be striving for, and it makes all those days of practice that you've put in so far so worth it, and it just makes you want to strive to get to the later ideas on your queue. And with that, I will leave you to go and get your work done. Thank you so much for listening. We will be here for you tomorrow if you need the push again. Thank you so much for listening. I love you all, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.